I had my base camp set up about 4,000 feet in a small clearing about 4 miles from any road. I spent the first 2 days scouting and found a buck that I wanted to try for. So on the third morning, I set off an hour before sunrise and started heading up the slope to a good spot where I could easily see a couple of meadows at first light. I got set up, leaned my rifle against the tree, and started wiping the dew off my binoculars and opened up a power bar. It was still a little dark to see, so I started turning my eyes into the meadow while I ate my breakfast. I'd made at least 20 do-it-yourself hunts in the western states in my life, but never this particular area, as I've never killed a big blacktail, and this was supposed to be a good area. Not having the funding for an outfitter slash guide, I always went by myself on public land and had a good time. So the first light comes and I start glassing the meadow. I heard some noise off to my left in the west. It sounded like something was coming up the ridge. It was going to come out in a small neck, excuse me, down that fed into the meadow. I turned and got my rifle up, assuming it was a deer. I can see movement in the brush about 100 yards to my west, but the brush was thick enough I couldn't make it out, but could tell it was not a deer. Eventually I could make out that it was upright, so I assumed it was another hunter. He got to the edge of the meadow and stood there, kind of crouching behind some bushes. I'm getting a little pissed off as someone else got into the same area I was in. I hadn't seen a soul in 2 days. I scouted for any human tracks. I rose up slowly and whistled at the guy, waving my right arm over my head, letting him know, hey, there's a hunter here, go somewhere else. He immediately wheeled to his right to face me directly, and when he did that, I could see he was immense across his shoulders. I thought, holy Christ, I'm 6'2", 220, and he made me look like a child. As soon as he saw me, even though it was dimly lit, I could tell we were looking at each other. And he ducked down in the bushes. I thought, what the hell? So I set my rifle against the tree and stepped out into the meadow so he could get a clear look at me. I started walking towards him. I want to hunt this area. I want to go somewhere else. Sorry, I want to hunt this area. I want him to go somewhere else. There's plenty of time for him to leave and do that. I took about 5 steps and he stood up again. And this time I could tell it was not a man. It was just too damn big and covered in hair. He started grunting at me and shaking the bushes in front of him. My rifle was still leaning against the tree where I had originally sat. And I raised my Zeiss up and looked at his face. I can't tell you a ton of details. I was totally startled. But he had dark hair, certainly all over what I could see, except for the face. There was a lot of flesh, a broad forehead, a broad nose, big lips, a huge set of shoulders and chest. I couldn't see his legs very well because of the brush, but I've spent countless hours looking through binoculars and a rifle scope. I know exactly what I'm looking at when I'm looking, and this is no man, and it was no ape, and it was no joke. It was no dumbass in a ghillie suit. The whole instant only took a matter of minutes, but it never stopped grunting, growling, or shaking the bushes at me. Though it never came out in the clearing or towards me any further, it certainly made me feel like it did not want me there, and I was in danger. He was downhill from me, so it was hard for me to get a judge at his height. But the bushes were clearly 4 to 5 feet tall, and it was well above those. I'm going to guess a good 7 or 8 feet tall, with shoulders a good 4 feet across, with massive arms, and head were also massive in proportion to a human. I was within 95 yards of this thing with a clean line of sight looking through quality optics. I've never seen anything like it before or since, and I do not ever want to see another one. It was truly a spooky deal. I instinctively backed up. I picked up my rifle, shouldered it, and centered the crosshairs on his face. It stared at me intently and very menacing. It would have been an easy shot. Still, something told me inside not to shoot. Something told me it was absolutely the wrong thing to do. So I held my rifle up with my right hand and raised my left hand over my head and looked at him in a submission. I didn't know what else to do. I slung my rifle, picked up my backpack, and headed back down the trail to camp, never looking back. I never heard him or saw him again. I got back to my tent, packed up everything, headed down to the truck, went to town. I stayed the night in town, and in the morning I drove to a new hunting area, 35 miles to the north, to finish out my trip. I didn't want to waste my tag or waste my Bible vacation time, so I tried my best play. I ended up unsuccessful in filling my tag that season, and yes, I was rattled the whole time. I've only told my family and a few close friends my story. My son believes me. I don't know if anyone else does or doesn't. I don't really give a shit. I got nothing to prove to anybody. I know what I saw, and as I said, a man's word should